So welcome to this service. We're going to try to do our best to remember Sandy. So let's all try to stay muted when we're not speaking and be mindful of turning off our cameras if we are moving around with our devices. If you're having trouble with the technology, you can try using the chat feature to reach Maceo Thomas. He's under the Washington Ethical Society banner. And he's our tech host today. Maceo is our membership coordinator. And in that role, he was one of the first people at West to greet Sandy. So I'm grateful to Maceo for welcoming Sandy into our midst, as well as for his help today. Please note that we're recording this service at the request of the family. So if you would prefer not to have your face or voice included in the recording, you are welcome to keep your microphone muted and your camera off and participate solely through the chat. Those of us, though many of us wish it were safe to be able to gather in person to comfort one another, we're glad that this technology helps us connect across the miles, just as this technology allowed some of us to get to know Sandy during his journey with Wes. In times of challenge, the rituals of our daily and weekly routines bring some comfort. And in that spirit, I will light a candle and say the words of candle lighting that we use at Wes each Sunday. If you have a candle at home, you're welcome to light it now as I share our candle lighting words. May we kindle within us the warmth of compassion, the light of understanding, and the fire of commitment to build a brighter future for all. May it be so. Sanford Morton Bienen, known as Sandy to his friends, was born January 26, 1937 in Brooklyn, New York. His parents, Irving and Nadia Bienen, met when his mother was a Ziegfeld Follies dancer and his father was one of her fans. But Sandy never knew about their Broadway past as he was growing up. His parents held high standards during his upbringing, demanding perfection from Sandy and his brother Barry in behavior and education. He did have happy memories visiting his mother's family in Richmond, Virginia. Sandy attended the University of Maryland at College Park on a scholarship and went on to earn a PhD in psychology from the University of Maryland as well. While he was there, he met his first wife, Kay, who was also from New York. They got married in August of 1960 and stayed together for over 20 years. Sandy spent only a brief time in clinical practice as a psychologist. He kept growing in his profession and earned a master's degree in public health administration at Johns Hopkins University. His main interest and talent was in administration, and at this he famously excelled. He was a respected and beloved regional director for the state of Maryland Mental Hygiene Administration. His career focused on supervising state hospitals and community support programs to improve lives through innovative and empowering mental health services. He was a key figure in developing RICA, the Regional Institute for Children and Adolescents, in Rockville, Maryland. Sandy was known among his colleagues for being passionate and a little unorthodox. At their annual agency meeting, colleagues would wonder what Dr. Bienen was going to do this time. In one of his famous speeches, he paced up and down on the stage saying, "I'm irked about problems within the mental health system." Meanwhile, Sandy and Kay were raising their daughters, Janet and Laura. Kay was a legislator in the Maryland House of Delegates and so was busy with her own work. Sandy did not enjoy the schmoozing that came with being a legislator's spouse, but he showed up. He tried to be a good parent by engaging in activities with his children, things like sailing and canoeing. Even though he was a city boy, he wanted to introduce his own children to nature. Though things seemed to be going well for Sandy on the surface, inwardly he faced a number of challenges. His childhood did not equip him to be emotionally present or forgiving to himself and others. Those of us who met Sandy later in life or those who knew him at work may never have guessed his inward struggles. Marriage with Kay ended around 1981 and he went into counseling. That experience made it clear that Sandy had a drinking problem and that something needed to change. He chose sobriety on May 29, 1983, and began rebuilding his relationships. This was the same year his daughter Janet graduated from high school. Janet remembers meeting Sandy for breakfast at IHOP, getting to know one another in a different way. Sandy reflected that he felt that most of his life up to that point, he felt like he was pretending to know what he was doing. And he could finally admit, let's be muted, friends. He could finally admit after he became sober that he didn't always have the confidence that he projected. He described his professional career as acting because he wasn't naturally an extrovert, but he was good at public speaking. He was gathering wisdom for himself and sharing it with Janet, who learned from those talks that you can't measure your inside to someone else's outside. Learning more about some of what Sandy overcame, the open-hearted wisdom and ability to laugh at himself that so many of us treasured about him, is all the more impressive. It took great strength of character for Sandy to grow, and he demonstrated a talent for bringing out the best in others. In his new life, Sandy was excited about fresh experiences. He and Janet went on a whitewater rafting trip, and they were on the bus in their wetsuits on the way to the launch point when Sandy turned to Janet and said, "This is pretty passive, right?" And she explained that in fact, it was not passive and that he would need to actively participate as they navigated Class 4 rapids. And Sandy loved it. He whooped and hollered, calling out, "Not passive," as they made their way down the river. Sandy started dating Allison Carter in 1988. She also worked in the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, and so was familiar with his passion and humor. They hadn't been together for very long when they took a trip to West Virginia to look at some property. Sandy wasn't seriously thinking about buying, but he thought it would be a nice trip and a cheap date. What Sandy and Allison found was that they felt at home instantly. It was a cosmic experience of belonging. They came back a week later and decided they had to buy it. Allison and Sandy's married life was enriched by their land in Berkeley Springs, by the community they found there, and by the ways they continued to grow as people. Sandy's heart grew as he deepened his love for Allison and for life. Even so, when Sandy decided to retire and live in Berkeley Springs full time, it came with a kind of an identity crisis. He had poured a lot of energy into his working life, and it took some time for him to figure out who he was beyond that. The road to retirement was literally rocky, in that one of the activities that helped Sandy adjust was discovering that he loved to lay down the gravel along his long driveway going up the mountain. Staying in touch with the land was grounding. And he eventually reinvented himself. Tom Brooks, who you will hear from later, helped Sandy by getting him involved in theater. Allison and Sandy took a playwriting class together. Sandy got into storytelling. In 2018, Sandy was very involved in the vaudeville show in Berkeley Springs, which was a company mainly made up of first-time performers. The experience was a thrill for all involved. Retirement also gave Sandy more time to travel. He went on over a dozen cruises, including 3 with Janet over the last 10 years. It was his dream to round Cape Horn, and it was exciting when he was able to do that. Sandy's later life was not without its challenges. His daughter Laura died, leaving behind Sandy's granddaughter Ashley, who he loved deeply. He became increasingly distant from Barry as his brother's health declined, and Barry died just a few weeks before Sandy. Our hearts go out to Barry's wife, Dorothy, in this time of shared grief. Sandy went through a couple of rounds of cancer treatment in recent years, and he had more surgery not that long ago. Through all of that, Sandy made more friends and was as present as he could be to the people he cared about. He was close with his book group in Berkeley Springs. When the pandemic hit and Sandy needed to find creative ways to meet new people, he remembered the Washington Ethical Society that his old friend Laura Steele belonged to and decided to check it out online. This involved learning how to use Zoom technology, which he was determined to do, becoming the rock star of the over 80 set by demonstrating what was possible. When Sandy arrived in our Sunday morning Zoom rooms at West late last summer, the members and staff were all charmed by him instantly. We appreciated his can-do attitude, his laugh, his easy way of drawing people out. Sandy was a regular at our coffee hour after platform and at the Friday evening check-in group. He joined the writers group and a deepening circle, all of which met online. He got involved in the Aging with Intention group and was just on the verge of co-presenting a program with Laura Steele about family stories when we lost him. Though Sandy was not a member of WES for very long, he was well loved and is sorely missed. Sandy's last day was a good one. He worked outdoors, cutting back some of the tall grass. It was his first day being active after recovering from his last surgery. Allison and Sandy made a big batch of soup, which they did every few months. As usual, Sandy was in charge of chopping. He tasted the soup as it progressed and munched on vegetables. Allison seasoned and cooked. Sandy suggested at one point that the soup could use a little more of something, and Allison adjusted it. And the last words he said to her were, "That last tweak you made, superb." And looking back, Allison thought that was a metaphor for his life. He learned and grew and kept tweaking, becoming ever more superb. Allison discovered on the morning of March 23rd that Sandy had died in his sleep during the night, sitting in his favorite chair after a full day of doing things he enjoyed in the house and on the land where he made his home in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia. He was 84. The lively demeanor, sparkling curiosity, and deep compassion that Sandy displayed right up through his last day make it all the more shocking to lose him so suddenly. The paramedics and sheriff who came to the house commented how peaceful he looked. His gentle departure from this world leaves behind family and friends who cared about him, people who are filled with gratitude for a life that was completed with love. It has been an honor to learn more about Sandy's life as we prepared this service. Next, we'll hear from a few people who knew Sandy for much longer than I did, starting with his colleagues Susan Giraldi and Frank Sullivan. After that, we'll hear from Mike Finkel, then conclude the prepared remarks with Tom Brooks. Frank and Susan, please tell us more about Sandy.
That was a beautifully drafted eulogy, I must say. Sandy was the best boss I ever had, and I hope I can hold myself together. He was a leader. He had a temper, and he always said he was sorry. And I used to marvel at how easily he could come to someone and say, "I overdid it. I got mad, and I shouldn't have done it." He was an innovator of programs. He believed that the public should receive services in a kind, compassionate manner. And he developed his programs that made that happen. Some of those programs are in operation today. And I think that's a true legacy for him. He was fun to work with. I can recall sitting in my very meager office on a very hot summer day, staring out over a window air conditioner that didn't work. And I thought, I really like this job and I like the people. And that was because of Sandy. And that's why Sandy was the best boss I ever had.
I knew Sandy through work. I was a social worker at Springfield, and I did the community outreach to Montgomery County, and that's how I met him on the advisory committee. First observation was he was so kind and patient. I had kind of a reputation as a hothead, and he was so people oriented, and he really knew how to handle people like me. He brought the best out of people. He was a master at handling conflict. For example, when I first started as the mental health director in St. Mary's County, wouldn't you know, his meeting, his regional meeting, and the health department departmental meeting were at the exact same time. And he handled it very well. He let me miss a few of the meetings. And after the third one, he said, you're going to have to start figuring out how to make this better. So I went to my other boss, Dr. Merrick. And he said, oh, okay, I guess you should alternate. And I said, I'm not sure that's going to work because you're both wise guys and I really need to hear what you both have to say. And he changed the department head meeting. And Sandy's comment was, yeah, I kind of figured something like that had happened. But he was great at that. And he always said that Doug Weems was the Calvert County director, and myself, we'd drive up to the meetings together and we'd plot how to get what we needed from the state, which was not easy. And he would just say, you guys were great. You always made me look good. And I was so taken back with that because we were always saying he was so responsive to people's needs. And he always allowed us enough room administratively to get things done for people at a local level, always looking out for the patients and the clients and the families. He was so family friendly. It was just remarkable how he was able to say that to us, that we made him look good and we knew he made us look good by allowing us to do what we needed to do. So in closure, all I can say is I hope there is a heaven or a higher power. I know he struggled with his cigarette addiction. I didn't really, I came in after the alcohol, but if there's a God or a heaven, I hope that's true, because then everybody will know how thankful I am, and I think the rest of you, for having Sandy in our lives and how much better a person I was able to become because of that relationship.
If it's a memorial for Jim.
Okay, so that's my closure, and thank you, Sandy.
Oh, my name's Mike Finkel. I recently retired as the executive director of Onrona, Maryland last year. Onrona, Maryland is a statewide behavioral health education advocacy organization. And I've been involved with the mental health peer movement since 1981-82. And that's when I met Sandy. Sandy was the regional director for the southern region of the Maryland Mental Hygiene Administration at the time. I was on the board of a program called Threshold Services, which is a housing program. It's now called Cornerstone in Montgomery County, and I was on their board. And Sandy would come to board meetings every now and then to let folks know what's going on in Montgomery County and around the state mental health wise. And in '82, Threshold Services got a large donation from Giant Food to open a farm market in Gaithersburg, Maryland. And I helped run the farm market as a volunteer. And Sandy would come in on weekends to volunteer, you know, selling stuff, helping to stock shelves, talking to people, et cetera. And I got to know Sandy that way because I spent time with him and knew he was a great guy. Also around the same time, 82, 83, an organization got started in Baltimore City called On Our Own, which was and still is, a peer-run mental health education and advocacy group, started a self-help program, and got funding from the Mental Hygiene Administration, actually through Allison Carter's office, who also worked for mental hygiene, to sponsor a statewide mental health consumer conference in '82, which was followed by funding to open a peer-run drop-in center in Baltimore City in '83. And I got hired by On Our Own to be their associate director in '83. And one of my first job responsibilities was to work with mental health consumers in other counties to help them start their own self-help groups. And the first group I worked with were folks in Montgomery County, where I was living at the time. And one of the things I did was set up a meeting with Dr. Sanford Bienen in his College Park office with folks from On Our Own of Montgomery County. And we asked him for money to get a group going. Not only did he give On Our Own some money to sort of organize a he also set up a meeting with Montgomery County officials at their county offices in Rockville to see if the county had any unused houses that they could rent to On Our Own to use as a drop-in center. And sure enough, they did. And the Montgomery County government rented On Our Own of Montgomery County, a county-owned house in downtown Rockville that was vacant for $1 a year. And all of that was due to Sandy Bienen. After that, I started working with mental health consumers in Prince George's County and Anne Arundel County. And again, we went to Dr. Bienen and he agreed to give them some money to open and sponsor a self-help group in those counties. And today, again, there's On Our Own groups all over Maryland. They're now called Wellness and Recovery Centers. They're peer-run wellness and recovery centers, and they cover the entire state of Maryland. And that's pretty much the start of the mental health consumer movement by Dr. Bienen and Allison Carter. Allison, again, was working with the Community Support Program Office at the Mental Hygiene Administration. And she was key in 1992 in getting a federal grant to help On Our Own of Maryland start as a separate nonprofit organization. And today, On Our Own of Maryland has been going strong. We have a network that serves over 7,000 individual mental health consumers or behavioral health consumers throughout Maryland every year. We put on a statewide mental health consumer conference. Usually it's in Ocean City at the Princess Royale Hotel. Of course, with the pandemic, we haven't been able to be there. But Allison and Sandy still were involved all these many years. They would come to our summer conferences every now and then and do workshops. Sandy, we hired a couple of times to do special retreats for our board of directors. And we've been involved with Sandy and Allison since 1981, almost 40 years. And it's been great. Sandy was a great mentor to me, a great friend. He'll be sorely missed. Let's see. That's about it. I truly will miss Sandy. They were good friends. They would invite me up to Berkeley Springs, West Virginia every now and then to spend a few days in the summertime. And I will truly miss Sandy. Rest in peace, Sandy. Thank you.
You won't be surprised to learn where I first met Sandy. It was within 2 months of my wife and kids moving to Berkeley Springs, West Virginia in 1999. We heard about the West Virginia Division of Highways plans to build a 4-lane throughway right through the heart of the county. My wife Beth and I met Sandy at a public meeting where we could get more information from the DOH, Division of Highways, and it was there that Sandy gave us a healthy skepticism and some background information that, of course, the Division of Highways didn't. We later met Allison and other amazing people in the community, and together with the guidance of Allison and Sandy, we formed the MCCC, the Morgan County Citizens Coalition. Sandy was certainly at the heart of driving those meetings forward and really excellent at bringing us all back to focus, because there were so many different directions we could go, but Sandy always helped anchor our intention and where we were going. In 2003, Beth and I directed our first play at the Ice House in Berkeley Springs, and we approached Sandy about auditioning for the show. He seemed like a natural, and we cast him as the tailor in A Midsummer Night's Dream. And the character played the character of Moonshine in the play within the play. Moonshine must have a lantern and a dog with him, the players decided, and our mutt Charlie played the dog, and Sandy and Charlie took to each other immediately and were a big hit in the show. Beth and I worked with Sandy several times over the years in different productions, and he took a couple of acting classes with me as well. Sandy has obviously had an effect on all of us here at this service, and I'm sure everyone else he touched in his life. The degree of openness and honesty of those in this service is apparent. The word intention has been mentioned several times during this service, and it appears in the slideshow today. It was a powerful word for Sandy, and it's no wonder he was a really good actor, as clarity of intention is the main ingredient for really fine acting. We always enjoyed Sandy's abilities to bring focus to our MCCC meetings, ask intelligent questions during our rehearsals for shows, and he brought 100% of himself and his creativity and his truth to the roles in our shows and his film work that he did later, which is truly what excellent acting is based on. We will miss Sandy, and although I feel sad for the loss and for Allison, there's really joy for me in my heart, because I know that he is free.
Thank you so much, Tom. And thank you, Frank and Susan and Mike. It's really a testament to a life well lived. As we prepare for open sharing, I'm going to invite all of you to take a moment and find your center and call to mind a memory you have of Sandy. Maybe it was just a brief moment, something he said, a special look he had. Maybe you have a short story, an adventure you had together, or an idea he brought to your group, or something you realized about your life thanks to his wisdom. We're going to have a brief period of silence. And during that time, you might call this memory more deeply to mind and heart. What was the weather like that day? Where were you together? Did you feel surprised or affirmed or challenged or delighted? Let's spend some time with those memories in the silence now. May it be so. May your memories bring you comfort, and may the love and wisdom that Sandy left as his legacy bring you peace. So we're going to enter into our time for sharing memories. I want to ensure that we have one person speaking at a time. So stay muted until I call on you. And then if you look under the More button, probably is where it is, there should be something that says raise hand, or it might be under the reactions menu. There should be something that says raise hand. But if you can't find it, you can put in the chat that you'd like to speak, like Bill and Kathy Palmer just did, and I'll put you in the queue that way. So I'll keep track of the queue. And I see Beth will be after Bill and Kathy. So when I call on you, you can unmute. And then we'll get to hear everybody's memories. So Bill and Kathy Palmer, if you can unmute yourself, we'll start with you.
Okay, thanks, Lynn. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks. I knew Sandy starting in 2018. And I'd like to echo everyone's comments about Shandy showing up and being genuine. He was certainly that way in my experience with him. In December 2018, I shared the stage with Sandy in a Christmas, pre-Christmas show at the Granary in Berkeley Springs. Sandy introduced me to the concept of storytelling and having that be an effective means of relaying something. He told a story about his best friend, Mort, and the last day they spent together. And I will never forget that story. We went out for breakfast, just him and me. We developed a friendship in these 2 years past, 2 to 3 years past, that I will always treasure. Breakfast, I would take off work to go to breakfast with him. And a funny story, I found out in discussions with him that he had a PhD in psychology. I think it was in psychology. And they had like a yearly ritual, him and Allison, where he would take his psychology degree, framed psychology degree, and throw it in the trash. And Allison would come and grab it out of the trash and put it back in the house. And I think that was something they did with on a yearly basis. I don't know. But the finest moment that Sandy and I shared together was flying. I'm a pilot. I fly small airplanes. And Sandy and I went flying together. We took off from Frederick, Maryland, flew over the airport that's north of Berkeley Springs, Potomac Air Park. And then we flew south to circle over his house. And then there were some clouds to the south of us, and we rose to that level, and we just took in the sky and the clouds and the beauty that was around us in the sky. And that is something I will always treasure with Sandy. Thanks very much. God bless you, Sandy.
Thank you, Bill. So let me just tell you who's in the queue. I've got Beth, Jeff, Mari Cromwell, Carol Reese, Judy Ohm, and Betty Crowley. So we'll go with Beth next.
Good morning. I'm Scott Duboff, and Beth, my wife, is to my left. And we met Sandy and Allison probably about 6 or 7 years ago. Sandy and Allison as well were uniquely warm and gracious. And hearing all of what's been said about Sandy, although I might have thought that my reaction was unique to me or unique to the experience, it's obviously just says who Sandy was. And he was a delightful person. We shared political views among many other values. Beth and I were just heartbroken to learn of his passing. We had seen him at a socially distanced, we saw Sandy and Allison socially distanced probably about 10 months ago at their home. We look out on their home, and for about another week, we'll be able to see it until the leaves fall fill in. But he was a delightful person, and we miss him very much. And Sandy, wherever you are, Godspeed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jeff Mihal, you're next.
Thank you. Thank you, Lynn. As Lynn had mentioned, Sandy was a regular at our Friday evening check-ins, as well as the writers group, as well as the deepening circle. For those of you who are not familiar with it, it's a twice monthly gathering, a fairly intimate group of 5 or 6 people. And we discuss subjects that are chosen by both the leader of the group or leaders of the group and members. Sandy led one on the subject of work, and had mentioned, told the story about how he had I guess a summer job, a part-time job in a sporting goods store in New York. And he described in great detail the efforts he had to undertake to prove to the city of New York and the state of New York that he was not entering into some form of indentured servitude, but then later said he had gotten so good at the job that he was making payoffs to the bookies to whom the store owners owed money. And I thought, oh, this is absolutely gold for a story. So the next week, I guess in our check-in, I asked Sandy if I could use what he told us in the writers group as the basis for a short story. And his reaction must have been fairly typical. It's, no, you don't want to do that. No, it's not worth it. I really rather you didn't. And then he paused and said, what the hell, go ahead. So I've done my research and my notes, and I just haven't started writing it yet. I last spoke to Sandy this Sunday before he died. It was after the West platform, our equivalent of a sermon, or and it was on the subject of family stories, and that Sandy was very concerned about what sort of stories he would want to leave for his grandchildren and others. And we found out that all of us who were participating in the group had one thing in common, and that was our predecessors, whether they were in Germany, Austria, Hungary, or Russia, had fled in order to avoid being conscripted as cannon fodder in the armies of the potentates of that time. I regret I never met Sandy in person. It will be an enduring regret, because there was so much more about him. I never felt that I had to put on any sort of pretension or airs. He was very good at evoking people's interests without judgment. And indeed, it wasn't until the slideshow this morning that I found out we had another thing in common. There was mention made of the George Kaufman Moss Hart play, You Can't Take It With You, in which there was a short mention that Sandy had played a part. I know the play because my parents had performed in the play as part of a community theater group in Minnesota. And so I would get extra money added onto my allowance by helping my mom and dad learn lines. So I'm quite familiar with the play. And I thought, what role did Sandy play? He must have been the Grandpa Vanderhoff. But now that I think about it, he would have made an excellent Mr. DePina. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And I'm sorry, I don't know, is it Mari or Mare?
It's Mare.
Thank you, Mare.
First of all, I want to offer a hug to Allison. Ooh. Because I know we need to do this online. So I got to know Sandy through Allison because I would have a vendor booth at the big Berkeley Springs Festival of Light. I can't remember what year I started doing that. I guess it was after, I don't know, 2013 or so. And so I was technically Sandy's friend, and not Sandy's friend, Allison's friend. And yet Sandy, would make sure that in the morning, because Allison slept in a little. It's okay, Allison, if I share that. Sandy was up early, and Sandy really wanted quality time with me to get to know me, like who I am, what I'm about. And I just found him to be so sparkly and remarkably open in his mind and thoughts, and just a huge heart. And he really sincerely wanted to connect with me, and which is amazing, because a lot of times a spouse is like, oh yeah, that's my spouse's friend, and nice to meet you, I'll go over, sit in the corner and read over there. But Sandy wasn't like that at all. And so I just want to honor you, Sandy, wherever you are. I don't think you're very far away right now. I think you're probably listening in to all this, loving all of the love that's coming forward for you. Thank you for allowing me to share. And Sandy, a big huge hug to you, Sandy, where you are in the spirit planes. And to you, Allison, I hope that we can see each other sometime soon in the physical for a real hug. Yes.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Mar. So I've got my list, and sounds like some folks are not feeling seen. So if you're raising your physical hand, I can't see you because Zoom is like that, and I'm really sorry. So if your Zoom hand's not working, put it in the chat, and we'll make sure we get to everybody. Carol Reese is the next on my list.
Okay, hi everyone. Nice to see you all. I guess I met Sandy around 2001 when I was a reporter for the Morgan Messenger here in Berkeley Springs, and he was on the Board of Health, and I was covering the story about how there was a movement to ban smoking in Berkeley Springs, in Morgan County. So that's when I first met him. And then I mostly got to know him in the last 5-6 years through the book group, the spiritually oriented book group that I was a member of. And there was a Tuesday, the afternoon after Sandy passed away, that some of our members of our book group were waiting for Sandy to arrive. And that's when we found out that he had passed the night before. And it was just this incredible shock. I miss him every week. I think about him often. Sandy had the most incredible sense of humor of the people, of all the people I know. His sense of humor was just so right on. And I don't know if I have a particular memory, except that I know that I knew right away that he was a native New Yorker like myself. And partially because of that, we had a special bond. I feel like we understood each other because of our backgrounds, and that he had my back frequently. And I really always appreciated that. There was going to be one adventure that we had at one of the book group meetings. I said that I had this feeling I wanted to go to like a play park where you can jump on things, and just some kind of play park that would be nearby. And he suggested going to McDonald's, where they have those places where there's balls and you can jump on them. And we didn't really know whether they would allow adults in there, but I was so appreciated the fact that he was willing to go and do that with me. He was the only one in the group who said, oh yeah, let's go and do it. So we never got to do that physically, but somehow maybe we are doing it. And I just really appreciate that. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to leave this chat, this Zoom meeting now, because I had a previous appointment that I have to go to. So I really enjoyed, appreciated, happy that I was able to attend for the amount of time that I did. So
Thank you, Carol.
Okay.
Thanks, Carol. I love the idea of Sandy just imagining himself in the ball pit. Judy. Judy Ohm, you're next.
Hello, I am also a member of the Washington Ethical Society, and sorry, I'm one of those people who only got to know him virtually, and in fact, in his learning to navigate the virtual platform, this is pretty much what I got to see of Sandy for the first several times I met, quote unquote, met him, because he had not yet learned about the centering. And so he, to me, initially was the guy whose forehead I had met. And but so I and then he also joined our deepening circle, which Jeff mentioned. And so I got to see a dimension of him that perhaps other people didn't. But it's clear to me that he brought his whole self in everything that he did. And it's so delightful to hear about other parts of his life and all the things that he's done that I've been a beneficiary of and didn't even know it, because I was a special ed teacher and know of Rika and so many of these other things that he really was clearly instrumental in getting off the ground and making happen. And but he was such a delight in just this little tiny amount of time that, you know, we got to appreciate his presence. He was really quite inspirational and delightful, and we will miss him too. So thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Judy. Betty is next.
Like many people, I was heavily influenced by Sandy. First, I met him when I was in college and I wanted to switch majors from journalism, but I had no clue what to do. So I went to the counseling center. Guess who worked at the counseling center? Sandy. And later on, after I got out of college, I was working in the Department of Social Services. And I signed up at a health fair or at some kind of a fair to join the Mental Health Association. Guess who was president of the Mental Health Association? Sandy. Well, it wasn't but days before he used his persuasive skills to have me join. And it wasn't very long after that, he decided that they needed a legislative committee. Guess who he said? You must form a legislative committee. And then it wasn't long after that, then he said I needed to be vice president. Well, the big part was, again, he made a big decision for me. He asked me to become the executive director of the Mental Health Association and created my whole career. And I think that sounds like a part of what he did for many people, but for me, it was very profound because I connected him in college. I chose sociology as my major. I went to work for the Mental Health Association ultimately. And of course, I worked with Sandy in a variety of roles, and he always stayed involved with the Mental Health Association. So I'm very thankful to my connection with Sandy. And I'm sorry I haven't seen him in recent years.
Thank you so much, Betty. Laura Steele is next. Laura, you should be unmuted, but I can't seem to hear you. There you go.
Okay, thanks. Many of you know that I knew Sandy for 40 years. Some of you have known him longer, some. We met at the Mental Health Association, as Betty was just mentioning. He was giving a workshop and I was a new member, and that was the beginning of a 40-year friendship. I echo so much of what all of you
you've done it yourself, but you FaceTime with your phone.
he could be a real goof. You saw that in some of the pictures. He could make me laugh with a joke that I didn't even get. And sometimes he'd tell a joke that I didn't even know he was telling. And I'd look at him like, yeah? And he'd say, it was a joke, it was a joke. And I go, oh, okay. But he never changed his face nor how he told it, which is why I didn't understand that it was a joke. So his sense of humor was unduplicatable. He would, if you've ever had a meal with him at a restaurant, I'm sure he did this with you. He would make friends with every wait person, ask their name, ask their background, how did they get there, what was the best meal. They'd go on forever. And then he would say, okay, I'm going to remember this for the next time. He's just that outgoing person who wanted to include everybody. And strangely enough, he often said, but I'm an introvert, which I found hard to believe, but I'll believe him now. Allison, Janet, you know, this is hard. So Allison, the changes I saw in Sandy over these many years are you. How you nudged him, how you encouraged him, how you showed him the way in so many ways, how you supported him, how you opened a door that he went through and was willing to participate in. His expansion of himself has just been an amazing adventure and an amazing process for me to watch and be part of. So that's for Allison. And for Janet, whom he adored, it brings my heart so full that you and he were able to repair over so many times and so many years in so many ways. I know he was looking forward to that next cruise. So the Ethical Society, you all must know that I was not the reason he joined in terms of recruiting him. I just talked about Wes for years, and he was looking for community, and it was at the right time. And he was in Berkeley Springs, and we were all over the place. And here was this wonderful opportunity for him to dive into another community, another adventure, another way of expressing all of who he was. So that's my part in his becoming a part of Wes. And I think it was a match made in heaven. I think he embodies what ethical culture is, eliciting the best in every person, offering the dignity and respect of every person, encouraging everybody to be their best self so that we can be our best selves. That was Sandy. That was all Sandy. And it wasn't from ethical culture, that was from him. So Sandy, for me, was like an older brother, a wise guide. That's not wise guy, that's wise guide. He was always there for me, telling me the truth I didn't want to hear. He was always there for me, encouraging something that I didn't want to do or let go of. He knew when to make that nudge and when to hold his peace, which sometimes he did, often he didn't. So he was my buddy. And I suspect he was a buddy to many, many, many of you. So I'd like to express through somebody else's words the kind of friend Sandy was for me. Forgive me if I don't get through this without tears. This is from our old friend Khalil Gibran. Your friend is your needs answered. Your field, which you sow with love and reap with thanksgiving. And he is your board and your fireside, where you come to him with your hunger, and you seek him for peace. When your friend speaks his mind, you fear not the nay in your own mind, nor do you withhold the I. And when he is silent, your heart ceases not to listen to his heart. For without words in friendship, all thoughts, all desires, all expectations are born and shared with joy that is unacclaimed. When you part from your friend, you grieve not, except that I do. For that which you love most in him may be clearer in his absence, as the mountain to the climber is clearer from the plain. And let there be no purpose in friendship save the deepening of the spirit. For love that seeks aught but the disclosure of its own mystery is not love, but a net cast forth, and only the unprofitable is caught. And let your best be for your friend. If he must know the ebb of your tide, let him know its flood also. For what is your friend that you should seek him with hours to kill? Seek him always with hours to live. For it is his to fill your need, but not your emptiness. And in the sweetness of friendship, let there be laughter and sharing of pleasures. For in the dew of little things, the heart finds its morning and is refreshed. Goodbye, my friend. Goodbye, my buddy.
Laura. Esquire, you're next.
Thank you. I had the privilege of knowing Sandy, and through him, I learned what is important in life. It's not what we give to people, but what we leave inside people. And because of that, I got a special bonding in the few times we met and that we were together. We just bonded because he taught me the first time I met him that we should embrace the meeting of souls with an open heart and let life shine through that. And for that, I'm very grateful to Allison, who allowed me to be in their place several times, and through them, embrace that openness of my heart. And for that, I love you, Sandy. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to talk at this time.
Thank you so much. Beatrice is next.
Yes, my daughter is confirming. Dear Alison, Janet, I think we met at Sandy 80th birthday, which is one of the very happy memory, along with the Christmas I spent. I think it was Christmas 2013, Alison, that I was stuck by the snow at your house. So I got to hang out more with the two of you. I just want to share, it's rare to meet someone with such intensity. And maybe sometimes Sandy was saying that we were twins because we have the same intensity, which probably make us very difficult to live with. I should ask my daughter, but probably. But along the years, there were moments where I think we made more than a decade, shortly after I met Alison when I moved to Berkeley Spring in 2009. I think the next visit at your house, I met Sandy. And along the years, there were those longer moments of exchange. In particular, Janet, I must say, each time he had to go on a cruise with you, and then he came back. There was this, he could spend hours, and there was this fight with Alison who wanted some time with me, and he would speak for hours. It was such highlights for him to go with you before and when he came back, and the picture books you prepared for him. But along the years, a lot of the time, I saw him briefly because we had those circles before COVID with Alison and Pam. And as he said, oh, I'm not supposed to be around, so he will. But in those brief moments, he always managed to, first thing he will ask me a very deep question about the state of the world, bringing me back to my past profession. And by the way, we had in common to having thrown our PhD in the trash. So metaphorically or physically. So you always ask very deep, first thing, very deep question about the state of the world or something political or something happening in the world that you wanted to. And then a question about spirituality, about and saying, you know, that's new for me, and Alison has introduced me to that. What your thought about that, and what, and then the laughter or something clownish, and it would be like something like that, and this intensity and radical presence, I would say. Again, it's I know it's not easy to live with on a daily basis, but it's such a quality of presence, of energy, that I admire. That you know, with all our flaws, we are not supposed to be perfect, but this willingness to transform that many have noticed is so precious. And the last thing I want to share with all the pain and sorrow that I know those much closer to him felt now when Pam told me that morning that he had passed. The first, along with the sorrow, the first thing that came to mind was his laugh and a sense of happiness. You know, the sense of happiness, in particular, the way he laughed. I'm so grateful. Of course, it's too soon, I know, for Alison, for his daughter, his granddaughter, many, but I'm so grateful to have known him. Interestingly, my daughter saw him very briefly, just a few times, and extremely briefly, but she remembers him very well. So much gratitude and thank you for this. We will hug each other soon, but really grateful for all of you who put this together and the opportunity to share and celebrate Sandy, who is with us.
Thank you, Beatrice. So I have a queue of Pat, Deborah, Bonnie, and Ann, and then Janet raised her hand. So Janet, do you want us to skip over to you, or do you want to go last?
I can go last. It's okay.
Okay. All right. So we'll put Janet at the end of the queue, and that makes Pat next.
I led a workshop at the Writers Center in Bethesda, which Sandy joined, I think, about a year ago. And of course, he was a delight. He had a kind of rough look, and I thought he was going to be ultra serious. So I was surprised when he read his first story. And I wanted just to read a paragraph from the end of it. He was writing about a woman who had learned to be a dancer. And then he went and the dancer went to try out with Mr. Ziegfeld. Whiteman banged away on the piano. Ziegfeld laughed and Fanny danced her heart out. Then the music stopped. You're the sassiest, brassiest, cutest kid I've seen. You're not the greatest dancer, but I'm giving you a job. Can you imagine a 16-year-old? Fanny danced on the Broadway stage for 12 years, then stopped when I was born. He had a much better way of presenting family members than most of us do. And he had a wonderful sense of humor. I'm really glad you gave this event, because we didn't hear a lot about the early days of the things he did and the serious things and the PhD type things. But he was definitely one of the best storytellers I ever met. I'm really sad that he's gone.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you for sharing some of his writing too. Deborah is next.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. I was one of the members of Pat's class just a few months ago this spring, and that's where I met Sandy in this wonderful group that continued. Oh, can you hear me?
We sure can. Go ahead, Deborah.
Please excuse me. I'm getting a message that says unmute myself. We've shared so much in this group long after the class ended, and we're writing tributes to Sandy for Allison. It's been so enriching for me to hear these earlier stories from much longer relationships, but I'm going to read my very short tribute for Sandy. After a year of searing pandemic losses and heart-stopping anxiety, your smile stretched across my Zoom screen. Up close, eyes twinkling as if you wanted to bring us all closer. And you did. Weeks after your passing, I coped with its seeming abruptness. Although you are absent from our weekly writing family, your generous, affirming spirit remains, along with the wit and humor of your written word. Your stories were memorable, beautifully structured, and expertly delivered in their outrageous details of a past that will be appreciated more fully because of you. I will never view Barbra Streisand's Funny Girl again without envisioning your mother in that Ziegfeld chorus line. Listen to Leonard Bernstein without smiling about Uncle Lenny, nor think of Dale Carnegie without seeing you sipping lemonade on his patio. And more touching than all was your memory of the sweet smell of your wife's hair when you first got together. Oh my. To listen to your youthful moxie and landing your first jobs and say to you with the intimate knowledge usually reserved for lifetime friends, why, Sandy, that reminds me of your mother. Thinking of her brazen arrival in the Big Apple and strutting into Flo Ziegfeld's office with no appointment. How rare and delightful to recognize all that because you shared some of your most important stories. Your mother and my father were born in the same year, 1907, and your memories gave color and setting to help me appreciate my own father's early life. Well-crafted stories, beautifully told, can draw everyone closer and make the world a gentler home for all of us. You did that for us, and I am profoundly grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Bonnie.
Yeah, hi. I was in the same group with Deborah and a number of other folks that are on this call. And I just want to share a poem that I wrote within days of hearing of Sandy's passing. It's called A Farewell to a Writer, a Sage, and Friend. You came into our lives one story at a time. We learned so much about you, line after line. A kid from the Bronx, a journey you've had. Each story told us more about you, and we are so glad. It began with Fanny, a girl in her dreams, plucky with gumption, bursting at the seams. How surprised we all were to learn that she, this sassy gal, a member of your own family tree. Bar mitzvahed and ready to become a man, you sought employment as part of that plan. Arnie and Julie and Hildegard did their part. instruction on a variety of skills, even the art of delivering cash-filled parcels and messages to Julie, keeping those escapades as secrets to yourself most surely. Time spent in a garden, not knowing weeds from flowers, rather the time spent with lemonade and Dale for hours. Perhaps words of wisdom he certainly did persist. Regardless, it was one more experience to add to your list. Those jobs long ago, the lessons you learned, hard work is good, the manhood you earned. And then there was Maud, a sailor and pal, a friend with tales you still can regale. Even at the end of your friendship, full circle, the time spent together, a different kind of miracle. And don't forget Uncle Lenny, his impact on you, a kid discouraged, forsaken, and blue, a cadre of kids, instruments of all kinds. His simple caring changed your heart and your mind. Nadia, your mom, in the conversation she told, I always loved you, even though she seemed cold. Now you know what you thought was not there, her box of memories in that conversation you hold dear. One touched our hearts, the story about your wife, a dinner invitation that led to a new life, her hair on your cheek, that scent every morning, Allison, her heart filled with love to satisfy your longing. You talked about the ups and the downs, creating smiles and even some frowns, your humor, the sharing, and especially the caring. There is no doubt what our hearts will be wearing. A chuckle, a smile, in all the days to come, will remember a writer second to none. But most of all, a friend so precious and true. There is only one Sandy Bienen, only one you. It wasn't just about his stories. He loved hearing yours too. Always giving salient, supportive feedback. He cared about you. We walk life paths with him for a short while, through stories delightful, eliciting a tear and mostly a smile. You, so talented, honest, and wonderful to the core. We wish you were still with us. We wanted more time for sure. And that's how Sandy was, how he left his mark. He'll always be our Sandy, forever in our hearts. And although it is sad to say goodbye, to bid adieu, Sandy will cherish the stories, the time we spent with you, and how you filled our hearts with joy and laughter. The wisdom you bestowed will remain ever after. Farewell, writer, sage, and friend. The gift of you we'll treasure to the end. Thanks, Sandy. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. And Anne Murphy is next. Thanks for waiting, Anne. Let's see, do you need some help?
Thank you for allowing me to share. And I just wanted to let you know that Sandy was part of Unity of Berkeley Springs, which I had the honor of serving until 2018 when we did close. And the book study that Carol Reese referred to was part of our Unity group. And it's still, the book study continues, although the Unity does not have a presence in Berkeley Springs. We met at the Granary in Berkeley Springs, and Sandy always shared with me how important the Unity group was. So when I think of Sandy, I think of his loving presence, his humor, his authenticity, his wisdom, and his engaging spirit. And Sandy had the dream that he would have a vaudeville show. And his mom, as we've heard several people share about Fannie Miller, his mother, who was in the Ziegfeld Follies. And so he engaged the whole Unity community. We were a very small community, maybe 20 people on a Sunday morning, but he engaged our whole community together. And there were many people that had never performed previously, but people made up skits and put together dances. Carol Reese and her partner did some jitterbug dancing. We engaged the tap dance troupe from the senior center. And it was a magical, wonderful afternoon. It was Sandy's dream that he provide an occasion where everybody could get together. The people that lived in the country, the people that lived in the town, the Democrats and the Republicans, and those who were at odds with each other during the week came together, and we had a sellout audience for an afternoon of vaudeville. We began with Sandy telling the story of Fannie Miller, and we dedicated the show to Fannie Miller. And it was the most magical, wonderful afternoon that I have ever experienced. It was joy and love, and it was Sandy's dream, but it became our dream. He engaged all of us in this wonderful event. So I think I spoke with Sandy. I meditate each morning, and one morning I had a vision of Sandy, and I thought, well, I'm going to call Sandy. And I think it was about a month before he made his transition. And the other thing that perhaps it's been implied, but I wanted to share, was Sandy was a spiritual seeker. He loved unity. Unity was, we call ourselves Christian, but we honor all paths to God. And so in our book study group, we would study Buddhist texts, we would study Muslim texts, we would study interfaith texts, we would study native texts and pagan texts. And Sandy was so open and so seeking and loving. And for me, Sandy continues, his spirit continues. He's put on invisibility, but his light still shines. It shines in my heart. It shines in my heart. And I would like to send love to Janet and to Allison. I know Sandy and Allison had such a beautiful, beautiful soul connection. And I know he loved his daughters and his granddaughters, and he embodied love. He embodied love. So he was a wonderful friend to my husband, Hank, and I, and Hank has put on invisibility as well. So perhaps and he used to come early to church on Sunday, and he and Hank would kibitz together. They both had wonderful senses of humor. So I would like to give a cheer for Sandy, for a life well lived, superb, a life well lived, a wise and beautiful man. So let's share together a cheer for Sandy Bienen. Yay, Sandy. Yay. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. It is a life well lived indeed. So Janet's going to finish up, but before that, I want to read in the chat from Beatrice Rogers. This is a lovely tribute to Sandy and well deserved. I knew him when he was the regional director for the Southern Maryland Regional Office. He was so important in supporting and supportive of the developmental of many programs and services in Prince George's County, many of which are still in operation now. He touched the lives of so many of us, and I appreciated knowing and learning from him in the early days. My condolences to the family. So now let's hear from Janet.
I'm not so sure I can do this after all. Hang on one second. Everybody has captured him very well. I could go on and on about what a great guy he is. I'm going to remember his booming laugh and how he never met a stranger. We had a lot of fun together. He helped me grow up. He helped me get wise. He helped me become who I am today. And most of all, what I'm grateful for is that not only was he my dad, but truly in the last 10 years or so, I considered him one of my very best friends. And I know that's also something he was very proud of, because I'm not so sure too many dads can say that about their relationships with their daughter. And I'm so grateful, and I'm going to miss him terribly. So thank you, everybody, for sharing your memories.
Thank you, Janet. Wow. So much, such a rich life, so many people that he touched. For all of these impressions and memories, and for the wisdom and connection that Sandy brought to our lives, we are grateful. As we near the end of our time together, I invite you into our second and final meditation. So you might like to close your eyes or soften your gaze and bring into your mind's eye, bring into your heart, Sandy Bienen. Remember what he looked like. See if you can add his smile or his booming laugh. Maybe there was a phrase that you associate with him. Superb. Remember his storytelling. Remember his mentorship. Bring Sandy into your mind as fully as you can, all of him. The parts that you loved, the parts that you didn't yet understand, maybe even some parts that confused you or irritated you. He was a whole person. So now that you're holding Sandy in your mind, in all of his fullness, in all of his humanity, I want to invite you to focus on one specific trait, one value that Sandy held, something you particularly admired about him. Perhaps it was his authenticity, or his humor, or his creativity, or his talent for drawing people out and encouraging them and helping them be their best. Whatever you choose, reach out to hold that special trait or value. And now in your mind's eye, bring it to yourself. And if you like, you can imagine carefully placing that quality or trait on some part of your body, maybe your shoulder where it might whisper to you, or in your hands, so you remember when you serve others, or close to your heart. As we go out from this virtual circle and into this hour and into the rest of our day and week and lifetime, carry with you that special trait or value that you admired so much in Sandy. Allow his humor, his kindness, his open-minded and open-heartedness to guide you in your own life. May we honor his death by continuing to live his values in the world. May it be so. Well, thank you to everyone who came today. Thank you to everyone who helped me learn more about Sandy, especially Allison Carter and Janet Bienen, who shared their memories of Sandy with me so generously. Thank you to Maceo Thomas for being the tech host today. Thank you to Robin Kravitz for dropping in to do tech support for the tech host and me. Thank you to everyone who is supporting the family and creating ripples of kindness in Sandy's memory. Before we end, I have two announcements from the family. The first is to ask, if you haven't already, please sign the virtual guest book at the Hunter Anderson Funeral Home. And I think Maceo is about to put that link into the Zoom chat. Second, in lieu of flowers, please donate to support your fellow humans. There are two suggestions from the obituary. One is the Boys and Girls Club of the Eastern Panhandle, and the other is Starting Points of Berkeley Springs. And right in the memo line of your check, food in memory of Sandy Bienen. And I think Maceo is going to drop that information in the chat as well. We saw a slideshow with pictures of Sandy before the service, and we'll play it again after closing words for those who may have missed it. And after the slideshow, we'll have a short time for social chatting before we close the Zoom. Friends, we have shared memories, reflected on wisdom, celebrated the life, and mourned the loss of Sandy Bienen. Though we sit apart from one another as we practice community care, we are united in our love and our grief. May the warmth of compassion, the light of understanding, and the fire of commitment comfort all who knew Sandy and urge us onward to lives of kindness and purpose. This ends our service. Whether you stay for the slideshow before departing or take your leave now, go in peace. Thank you, Maceo. So this is the time of the reception time. So this is a time for open social chatting. I won't call on people. Just, you know, as you are moved, you can offer your condolences to Allison, who's still on the Zoom. Janet had to go, or, you know, share with each other. So we'll keep the Zoom open for about half an hour if we need it.
Lynn, I hope you don't mind if I ask a question of maybe somebody who knew about Sandy's mom. During the service, there was mention made of Paul Whiteman, who was an extremely popular musical entertainer of the 1920s and early 30s. And I had no idea that Sandy's mother was a member of the Ziegfeld Follies, which were featured in a 1930 film called The King of Jazz, which Turner Classic Movies aired a few weeks ago. Could she have appeared in that film? And could I have seen Sandy's mom on the screen? It's possible.
I guess it is.
Well, I'm terrible with dates, and and I don't know if she was in that film or not. I mean, she left the Ziegfeld Follies after he was born and kind of put it away in a box and only brought it out, you know, much later when he was in his 50s and 60s and trying to reconnect with her. And she took him to this box in the closet and pulled out this material about she's quoted in the New York Times all the time because she was kind of fun and sassy, you know, so she got a lot of publicity. So I can't answer that question, but I know I love the story of her being the 16-year-old girl and getting on the train to New York and throwing her school books out the window and deciding she wasn't going to marry that guy that they were saying she had to marry, and riding up to New York and going right into Ziegfeld's office and demanding an interview. And then he said, okay, dance for me. And she said, I can't dance. There's a carpet on the floor. You know, so he calls the people in, they pull up the carpet, and she goes, well, I don't have any music. So that's when he called Whitefield down from upstairs to come down and play for her while she did her dance for him. So, and then that started that career. So I think that was kind of in his blood, the acting and the theatrical stuff. So, but that's all I have to say about it. Yeah, it's amazing.
Allison,
Yeah, hi, Laura.
hi. Add the part about where she came from in Richmond.
Yeah, go ahead. You know that story, right?
So she grew up in, with immigrant Russian parents, Jewish, Orthodox, in a small part of Richmond, Virginia, where her father had a grocery store, which was primarily in the African American section of Richmond.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty strict upbringing, pretty narrow expectations of this wild little girl. So those of you who know me, Sandy's mother was maybe an inch or two taller than I am. She was a tiny person. And she got it in her head that she wanted to get out of there, and she did.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the kind of, you know, there's always the flip side, and the flip side was when she left the stage, that part of her seemed to disappear, and Sandy didn't really see much of it through his growing up.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other piece too was that she learned to dance from the kids on the street.
Oh, the black kids.
Yeah.
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 Her background?
I actually met Sandy's mother. She lived to be about 95. Is that right, Allison?
Yeah.
95 or 96. And for some, to see his mother a couple times. And she insisted on living on her own, even though she was 95 until the very end. And she did manage everything on her own to the very end. And so, yeah, I did actually meet her. I went down, I took Sandy down and sat and talked with her in our living room, et cetera, et cetera. But at that point, she was not the Follies dancer. She was a little 95-year-old lady, but very, very interesting to meet her.
So there, let's see, is Frank still here? Did Frank Sullivan leave?
He's still here.
Oh, good. Frank, I just wanted to pass on.
Oh, hello.
I just wanted to let you know that Sandy often talked about you and your collegiality and your work together over the years. You and Stu Silver, I think, were, besides Allison, of course, were his favorite MHA people.
Well, you know, it was just always such a pleasure. And Sandy was so accepting of people's differences and style. And, you know, I'm so touched by you and Betty Crowley and Mike Finkel, you know, the old timer, sorry, the old timers, because I think we did such wonderful things. And Sandy was always there, holding the torch to light the way down the path. And I'm so glad to see B. Rogers and you know, so many good things I think Sandy facilitated and never took credit. Thanks, everybody. This was great.
It was. Allison, you and Janet put together an amazing, amazing photo thing. I don't know who did all of what, but it was wonderful.
This has been amazing for me. I mean, very, it's almost like it's beyond words in a way to tell you all how deeply I appreciate your being here and your sharing about him. That's one of the things I loved, how multidimensional he was and how many different areas of his life where he touched so many people. And I think one of the things that I would say that I was loving toward the end of his life was that he was finally coming into loving little Sandy, because there is that little boy and there's that little person in all of us that needs love and caring and attention and often doesn't feel that. And there were times when he would get it and I'd say, give yourself a gold star for that, you know, and love little Sandy and give little Sandy credit for that. And that was so wonderful. And when he left, I think there are things that comfort us, and the fact that he seemed so peaceful. And so that anyone who saw him said, my God, look at him. He's like, look at the expression on his face. I want to go like that, people would say. And I want to go like that, where you go to sleep and you leave, because you've lived life and it's time to go. I had a sense that maybe there were more physical issues coming up that I wasn't so sure he would ever want to have to deal with. And so when I feel my pain and my grief, and I kind of breathe into it and let it go, and then I go back and I think about how he left, and that like final that final tweak he did, Pete's superb, because that was a way to go, and I'm very sensitive to energies, and I really feel him around a lot. And it's almost like sometimes I look out here in our little earth meditation circle, and it's almost like he's sitting out there, kind of enjoying our wonderful spot here that kind of helped to bring us together 30 some years ago. And so to hear all of you to share from your hearts and what he meant to you in your life, there could be no greater blessing and comfort. And I feel your love and your caring for him, and I feel your support and your caring for me too. And God bless you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing him with us.
What?
Thank you for sharing him with us.
Allison, I hope you're seeing the messages in the chat as well. Some from folks who need to go, but some just reflecting about how grateful they were to have met him.
Yeah, I was not seeing those. Yeah. Nice. Wow, that's things like that are so beautiful. How we move into our love space, and we move into our hearts and supporting each other, and it's appreciating things about each other, and that's amazing. Thank you all, and thank you, Lynn. Wow, thank you for overseeing this, and thank you, Frank and Susan, for sharing, and Laura and Pam, and I don't know, is there anybody left? I seem to have taken up the big screen here. Yeah, there's hi. Now I'm moving around. Things change on this. Yeah, Jeff, that was good to meet you. Hi, Val. Wow, Ian Murphy. Wow, okay. This is just fantastic because it's like going through a whole all the different rooms and chambers and levels and dimensions of his life, and I just have a feeling he's just sitting right here with us with a big old smile on his face.
So, Allison, I talked to Ken the other day.
Oh, okay.
And he was going to try to make it, but he wasn't sure he'd be able to. So,
okay,
in touch with you.
Okay. Well, thankfully this will be recorded, so
yeah,
people that couldn't make it today can have a chance to see it, and I'll be running back through it for sure, and enjoying and being comforted and healed by what people have to say. It's really a blessing. But Lynn, thank you so much, and thank you to Wes for overseeing this and letting us use the facility, and for Maceo for getting the music going on the slideshow. Thank you all so much. There has to be a lot involved, a lot of work with this. And I'm in awe that you were helpful this way, that we have this option during this time when so many people can't go out. So I'm going to be quiet now, okay?
Well, it's an honor and a pleasure. And I'm glad that we could get, Sandy's Berkeley Springs friends and his DC friends and
Yeah.
friends from everywhere. Because he did touch so many lives in many different places.
And we were in a new model too, which I like, because we were sharing on Facebook and through emails and stuff like that, and getting the word out that way. And that felt really more personal and more connected and engaged to me, even though we are in separate places. So,
right.
Yeah.
And when things are safer, maybe you'll have, an anniversary remembrance on your land or something like that. I mean,
yes. He wants us to plant a tree with his ashes. So that's going to be really fun, and maybe when things get quieter, we can do that. That would be wonderful. We have our Earth meditation circle out here, and there's really incredibly beautiful, powerful energies there. So, hi.
Maceo, you got your camera on. Did you want to say something?
Yes,
you
I
got
did.
Hi, Maceo. Thank you.
Oh, wow. No, thank you, for sharing Sandy with us. And it really hurt to, what I would say is to lose him so soon, which is kind of a crazy thing to say to somebody who's been around for 85 plus years. But in the memorial reflection we had, a month or so ago, and this really helped me see this is exactly how, if we could all live our life like this. I hear a lot of people, there's this thing like hashtag no new friends. And clearly that is not the right motto to me, to Sandy. So many people here who were able to make a new friend, not just at West. Somebody talked about just meeting him 3 months ago in a writing group. And I feel honored to have made a new friend, and I miss him. I was so shocked. He's so vibrant, like every single moment that I saw him. Lynn was making a mention of him becoming a Zoom octogenarian, and I think we exchanged emails to help him when we were trying to get him to do something at one point. And although he was initially like, I don't, trying to give up on it, but he kept pushing through, which, I think this idea that we all can continue to learn and explore life is, the legacy of what I see here. So I'm just happy to have scratched the surface, but it went so deep. So, and I think that was just how Sandy learned to live his life. And it was also very, very comforting to me to hear his story of how we can continue to be different people than we were a decade ago, 40 years ago.
Absolutely.
And I talk about him, and that I saw this and learned more. I'll continue to share with other people. So thank you. And I'm gonna have to get out to Berkeley Springs still.
Oh, cool. That would be great. Yeah. You helped him move into what my new name for him was Zoom Boy. So you helped him move to his new stage. He loved that Zooming. So thank you for being his life coach with that.
Right.
Yeah. It is interesting what you're saying about the different phases of life too. I think he and I had a 16-year honeymoon. I didn't even know life could be like that. But then when he retired, that was a really hard transition for him. So, and there's not a lot in our culture that helps us to really learn and think about those transitions that you were talking about, because that's really important to redefine and clarify life as it is now. I'm going through that now, as you can imagine. It's like, well, who am I now? And what's life like for me? And it's an interesting time. So that was very wise and astute of you to be thinking about that like that. Thank you for sharing that. And I love the music you picked with the slideshow.
Oh, yes. And I had a lot of help. I think Robin's gone, but she's the tech wizard who helped put it all inside.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Go team. Oh,
Yep. It takes a
is
village.
that Janet back?
Where did she go? Where is she?
Yeah, I'm appearing under Thomas Ball. I'm here with a group of some of my dearest friends that have come and joined me in person, all vaccinated and able to share some fellowship in person.
Good. I'm glad you're able to have some company.
I found hitting end meeting very lonely.
Yeah, I hear that. So Allison, I hope you have some time this afternoon to be on the phone with a friend or something.
Oh, absolutely. I think I'm going to go sit in the circle for a little while.
Yeah.
Because it's clear that he likes to hang out there.
Right. Well, maybe we should let you go do that and be with Sandy in
Alrighty.
that way. And just thanks for sharing him with us. And thank you everybody for coming.
Thank everybody again. I'm just so blessed by
love
your
you,
help.
Allison.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Love you.
Love you.